Hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial. We're back in our Unreal Engine 4 point-and-click blueprint for the inventory system. So just to kind of catch us up to where we were at, right now we got the bar working at the bottom, and we have movement already. I'm going to post links to those both right now as well as at the end of the video if you want to check those other videos out, just in case you are not caught up at this point. And also everything we did last time on the exact video before this one is we made these three blueprints here involving our inventory. So we have the actual inventory, and it's represented by this object right here. That's placed in our scene so we can get references to it, and our player can actually touch the childs of that blueprint. So when we make childs of the inventory itself, each item, it'll be represented by that. Here itself is the child class. I'm sorry, this one is the child class. Right now we just have a sphere representing the item mesh, but if we actually throw it in to our scene, we actually have it represented, and we can change the item name to whatever we want, but for right now I'm leaving it item 1. And if you guys ever need to find a need for it, there's item textures and item materials you can put on as well, but for right now all we worry about is the static mesh. So what we're going to do this time is a couple things with the camera real quick, and then we're going to actually have it so that the player can actually collide with the inventory child class actors, and it can check to see if it is a legit item or not. So the first thing we're going to do is work with the camera for just a quick moment. What we're actually going to do is change the projection mode, because right now we're in normal, kind of like 3D mode. But when we have that, it kind of messes up with the point and click, because if you notice, like, my mouse is right here, I'll click, and my character is right there. It's kind of off. There's kind of an offset to him. So what we're going to do to fix that is actually change the projection mode from perspective to orthographic. And orthographic will change it so it's more of a 2D camera, and it should recognize our location of the mouse better. So what we're going to do, this is in the actual player character section. Here where we do all the camera nonsense. Right here, where we spawn the new camera actor, that's where we're going to do it, because with this new camera actor, that's the one with the properties we need to change, because initially your thought may be to change the player camera in the actual components blueprint, but that's not the case here. So what we're going to do, we're going to drag out from, we created a target camera component out from this spawn camera actor, so we're just going to drag a guy out from here. We're going to add a reroute node just for kind of organizational purposes. We're going to drag out another one. And then we're going to drag it up. And we're going to call set projection mode. Throw it in. Oops. And as you can see, perspective is the first option, but orthographic is the second. So we're just going to choose orthographic. And there's one last thing we got to change, and that's the actual orthographic width. Because right now if we play it right here, we're going to be super zoomed in. And that's not what we want. So just to give it a larger width, just so it's projected further out. So let's drag a guy out here, and we're going to do set ortho width. Throw them in. And I found the best number for my purpose here is 2048. This may change for you depending on what perspective you want and the kind of gameplay you want, the kind of perspectives and everything like that. So if we play now, we'll be zoomed back out. And now if we click somewhere, see if I click in the center of this square right here, it's going to pretty much move to that center of the square. It's accurate now. It moves to the location you want it to be. And now it's a full 2D camera, so it kind of makes sense for everything to click correctly and the player to go to the right location. So again, this is only going to work if your game is truly 2D. So you most likely want to keep a perspective projection mode if your game is 3D, but it's done in a 2D perspective. But if your game is truly 2D, I definitely recommend doing the orthographic projection mode, especially if you're doing a point and click. So enough of that, because as of right now, this is the final camera. So let's just grab everything. So again, all you can really do is just left click drag, get a marquee selection of all of it, hit the C key, and we'll just call this camera blueprint. So let's compile again, save that, and what we're going to do now is actually start to work on the player's ability to collide with items and check to see if said item is an inventory item, and if so, is it already in the inventory? If so, ignore it. So let's go ahead. Let's first, since this is the final camera for right now, not camera, the final point and click movement, let's get this out of the way. Marquee selected, I'll hit control, just C, and we'll just call this point and click mechanic. If you can see that, there you go. Let's just move everything out of the way, keep everything organized. So let's put that guy right there. So what we're going to do now, we're going to start with the begin overlap. So event actor begin overlap. So that's the player beginning its overlap. And now what we're going to do is create a new macro. So let's right click. Actually, no, we don't have to right click. It's right here. So right here where it says macro, add macro. Let's left click that. And I want to call this check. Oops. Check object. I can't spell today. Oh my goodness. Check object is inventory item. Okay, so I already have one here, so what I'm going to do is delete it. So let's try naming it again. So check object is inventory item. I already had one there just because I did a lot of practice for this script, so apologize on that mess up. And then in this macro, what we're going to need is a couple inputs. So let's hit new. The first one's going to be an executable. We're just going to call that in. And then the second one, this is where things kind of get a little tricky for me at least, is going to be a new, so new, and then it's going to be just actor, I believe. We're just going to call this item in check. And that's technically all we really need for input and output, but I like to create an output anyway, just in case. So output, it's going to be an executable. I'm going to name it out. I'm also going to create one last one. It's going to be of a name. And we'll have it return the item name just in case we need it. So that's what we have there. So let's move the output away for right now since we won't need it until obviously the very end. And let's actually also go back to the main event graph. Let's throw the macro in. So you just have to left click drag it. And put that in and put the other actor into item check. So we got that going. So now let's go back into the macro. And with the item check, the first thing we're going to do is check if it's of a certain class. So we're going to do equal. I'm sorry, no, not equal. We're going to do get class. Now we're going to do equal class. And the class name we're going to look for is child. So inventory child. And once we get that, that's when we create that branch. Let's dump these guys down a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is check, hey, the item we just collided with, is it of this class? If so, do some things. If not, do some other things. So let's first do a print string just to see if it works. And we'll do object is an inventory child. Doesn't have to be that specific, just anything that recognizes the fact that we're touching the item. So let's hit compile. Now let's go to our object. There it is. So if we collide with it, it should give us that print message. And it doesn't. So now we got debug. Okay, here's why. It says no collision. So what we're going to do, let's go into our event graph. Event begin play. We're going to do a get all actors of class. The class is going to be the child that we're in right now. So BP underscore inventory underscore item underscore child. Something else I'm going to do really quick. Do I still have those? Because there's old classes that I have in here. Yeah, here they are. This one's going to get confusing, so we're just going to... Actually, we'll leave them alone for right now. But I'm going to clean that up for next time, just because that's getting confusing for me, and it might get confusing for you. So let's go back into the child. So we want BP underscore inventory underscore item underscore child. And then we're going to do a get. And then we're going to cast that. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we're not. What we're going to do here, we'll do a for each. And then for each array element, what we're going to do is set a collision for it. So set actor enable collision. Actually, no, that's not the one we want. Let's find a different one. Yes. All right. So set collision enabled for the item mesh. Do body, and we're going to give it collision enabled. So let's see if that corrects that issue. And also, let's move this item a little bit closer. Alright, moment of truth. Still nothing. Let me take a moment here to find out what is going on. Let's see. Pardon me. Let's see. Let's see if there's a false. So let's copy print string, and we'll just do false. Because everything looks right. So let me see. This will truly find out if it has collision or not. No, still nothing. Let's see. So far, everything's making sense. Let's see. So for right now, this is where I'm going to pause the video until I figure this out. Once I figure this out, the video is going to continue. So I apologize for this. I've got to figure this out real quick. Okay, so we're back. I was able to figure out what was going on. It was a huge mess of things. One thing, the first half of it you wouldn't have noticed because you didn't have extra copies of blueprints, but earlier in the video I saw that I had from previous iterations and trying to figure this out on my own. I had copies of the inventory item, and inventory item child classes. So those being present along with the ones we're making in these videos is what messed me up in the beginning. So what I did is I deleted those, so I just have what you guys have, what we've been working on. So everything here should be what you have. And then what we do in the inventory item child class, We give it no collision. We check the generate overlap events. So that's all we need there. And then the BP inventory, I don't know if we did this in the video, but if we haven't, we'll cover it again soon. What we do is we cast for getting all the actors of the HUD, and we cast that to a variable, so we have access to our P_C_HUD just in case we need it. And then what we do is it's here where we get all actors of the inventory item child class for each item that's in the scene. We grab them, and for each one we set the collision to be enabled. So we turn on their collision again, and what we need to do now, what we did not go over, is under the root capsule component of your player character, there's a couple things we want to have checked. First, we want to simulate physics and start awake. And some of you thinking probably, well, if we do this, the character's just going to fall. And you're right, that's going to happen, but I'll show you how to fix it. But after we have those two checked, we're going to go down to the collision. For collision preset, we're going to set it to custom. Collision enabled, we're going to leave object type at pawn. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically have everything overlap except for default projectile. That's the only thing we don't really need to have. That we can have that under block. Everything else is the same. So everything is overlap except for default projectile. The object type is pawn. Collision enabled, just leave it enabled, and the collision preset is custom. And we have checked the generate overlap events. And now what we need to do additionally is we gotta go into our player controller. And we want to make sure we have everything set here. So the first thing we want to do for player camera manager class, we don't need anything there. Leave it alone. Everything's default up in this top section. And then we're going to have everything checked for the mouse interface. Default mouse cursor, we're going to leave that to default for right now. And then for default click trace channel, for right now I have for world dynamic, so make sure that's the same. And then everything else is the same for this class. So compile and save. So now what we need to do in our scene, we need to go into our world settings. And then in the world settings, basically, you want to make sure you have everything overridden as well if we haven't already. And again, I apologize for this mix-up. It's kind of confusing, so we gotta just come back to it as best as we can. For the game mode override, you gotta put in P_C_game mode. For default pawn class, it's the P_C_ character. HUD is P_C_HUD. And then the player control class is P_, oh my god, that's so hard to say, P_C_player controller. Game state, leave that alone. And then this is where we correct if you're falling when you put in the start awake and give it simulating physics for your character. So check override world gravity, and then global gravity Z is 0. So that way, when you play, he's just floating. So I know that was a meaty mouthful, so I apologize for that. So let's get back to where we were, which was in the character, in the graph, right here. So everything should work now. So let's play. And we have it, so as soon as you touch it, it says object is an inventory child. So that's perfect. That's what we want. So now we need to continue where we left off. So what we need to do now, once we determine if it is an object that we can pull up, we basically want to get the inventory name and basically add that item to our inventory. But let's first make sure the check for it not being an inventory item is working correctly. So this is what we'll do. I'll drag out a cube. This is actually, let me just go into the content browser, type in cube, grab that shape, let's drag out a copy of this, replace it, and now we got that. And I'll just shrink it by half just so it's small. So when we touch this actor, that's when it should say, hey, false, no, this is not a collectible item. It's not saying anything. So let's see. Let's see why. It should. All this stuff is crazy. So let's not worry about that for right now, because we're going to do a check like that soon. So let's separate these up. Let's disconnect. So what we're going to do, now that we know this is working, we'll leave this check here for object is inventory child. But what we're going to do now, we're going to get the item. Let's get a reroute. And we're going to drag this out over here. Add another reroute. And what we're going to do is cast to BP inventory item. And now if the cast failed, we'll do false. And we'll rename this not an inventory item. And what we need to do now is grab this target. Let's get the inventory item name. So now we'll know the name of the item. And basically what we need to do is add items to the inventory. So that's going to be a whole new function that we're going to call. But for right now, let's just double check to see if everything's working. So right now we'll plug those up, compile. So let's see. So it gets the inventory object as an inventory child, but it's not recognizing this guy. And I know why. I'm so dumb when it comes to collisions. We gotta make sure generate overlap events is true. Block all, we'll just do overlap all. Everything else we can leave the same. So let's try this one more time. And just so it's not in our way, let me just quickly build lighting. Let Swarm do its thing for a minute. Okay. Everything's done. So now this should work. So once we touch this cube, it's going to say not a collectible item. Not an inventory item. Boom! We did it. So remember, because I don't remember, because I don't know why, but just make sure you got your collisions correct, because it will save you a headache like it's not for me. So always check your collisions what they want to be for every object you put in. But now we have that checked. Like I said, we're going to need to create a new function and a new piece of logic for adding items to our inventory. And that's actually going to be done within the actual inventory class, or blueprint I should say, or the inventory item. It is going to be done through our inventory, so let's go into the inventory class. Oops. Get that filter out. And this is basically just a new function. Let's call this add items to inventory. For inputs, we're going to need a couple of them. One we're going to need is BP inventory item. And we'll name this item in. Next one we're going to need is a name. We'll call that item name. And that's it. We don't need really an output for anything. So what we're going to do is, because we went hardcore in the last video, we created all these variables. All of them are created, so you should be able to see all these. So the first thing we're going to do is drag out item name. We're going to do set item name, or not. Let's do it that way. So all I did, right-click, drag that out. And I also have a print function here, so let's go ahead and print string. And we're going to drag out item name. It's going to convert from a name to a string. Let's try to make this as organized as possible. And what we want to do here is check to see, because you shouldn't have multiple items for this kind of game, but if you do have multiple items, I do have a check in place to see if you already have that item or not. So let's do that check right now. So let's drag out the item name array. Let's drag out item name. From the array, do contains item, and the item name is going into that item. And now this is a branch. So it's going to be a true or false if it does or does not. And if it's true that this inventory already has this item, we're just going to do a print string. And we're going to say item already in inventory. If it's not true, we're going to add that item name into our inventory. So let's grab these two variables, we'll need them. Let's do add. And we're going to add the item name in. False is going in. Put these a little closer, just to keep everything nice and concise and tight. And what we're going to need to do now is, now that we've gotten the item names and everything like that, we're going to need to cast it back to the inventory child. So let's create a reroute. Oops. Do another reroute. I don't know if you'll be like me, but I've come to learn to love reroute nodes. So just keep that in mind. So let's do cast to inventory item child. Collect that object in. If we have a cast failed, like always, we'll just have a catch for it. Just call this cast. Oops. Cast to child failed. It's not a question. I don't know why I gave it that inflection. But what we're going to do now, let's go into our item list. Let's grab that array. Let's go ahead and click add. And then out from the top cast, we're going to do right here. And we're going to add this item in like that. And then what we need to do for integer variables, so number of inventory items, we're going to need to set that. And what we're going to set it to is the current number of items plus 1. Plug that in. And we can also have a catch to check and tell us, how many items we have in our inventory. So let's copy and paste that variable. Convert to string, or toString should be the word. And then print. And now this next part is for whether or not, it's kind of unnecessary for my purposes now, but if you do need to know the location of the item and where you picked it up, this one will be useful for you. So what we're going to do is, let's move this print string out of the way. We're going to drag this guy out. Let's create a reroute node just for organizational purposes. And we're going to do a get actor location. And if you remember, in our vector variables, we created an item location array. We're going to do add. And we're going to add that actor's location. Now the last thing we're going to do is destroy the actor itself. So from here, let's create a reroute node, and then destroy actor. And now I'll do it. So let's compile, save, and I'll just run through this one last time. So in this function, we get an item name, and we get an item object, so that's going to be of the inventory item class. We're going to get its item name, and we're going to set it to this class's version of item name. We're going to print the item name as well, and then we're going to add that item name to our item name array. And so from here, we're going to check if that item name is already in that item name. So we're going to say, hey, does it contain that item name already? If so, we're going to say this. If not, we're going to add it in. And then we cast it back to an inventory item child. We add it to our inventory list. We add the number of items by 1. We print the number of items. We get that actor's location when we pick it up. We add it to our item location array, and then we destroy that actor. So that's what this function does, and again, this is in our BP inventory. But back into our character class, what we need to do, let's go back into our event graph. And it's actually from here, this is where we start casting our variables. So here's our inventory reference. So let's compile. And what we need to do, let's go back into our function, or our macro, I should say. Let's disconnect these two for right now. We're going to grab our inventory reference. We're going to call add items, or add inventory items. What's the name of that? Yeah, it's add items to inventory. We may need to redo that casting just so, because we've had issues with it here. So let's delete this. Delete that. Now let's do get all actors of class inventory get cast to BP inventory. Cast failed, we'll do failure. And then promote to variable. And we'll call this inventory reference. Compile. Let's go back at the check objects here. Let's try it one more time. Yep, here we go. Add items to inventory, right there. So we can connect this out from the cast. The item in is going to be the item that we're seeing right here. So, whoops, let's throw them in. And then item name is the item name we have right here. And then we can just throw this into out and throw the item name in. So that's it. So to review again what we're doing here, when we touch an object, we're going to check to see if it's a BP inventory item child class. If it is, we're going to say yeah, we're going to print this, it's an inventory child. If not, we're going to say not an inventory item. Then we're going to cast it to a BP inventory item, get the item's name, and then basically output it there. But we're also going to put it through the add items to inventory, and we already discussed what that does. So let's go ahead and save. And I'm going to drag out a copy of this. I'm going to leave it at item name 1. So what should happen is we're going to touch the cube. It's going to say it's not an object that we can pick up. Then we're going to touch this sphere. It's going to pick it up, add it to the inventory, and destroy it. And then we're going to touch this one, and it's going to say we already have that object, and it's going to leave it alone. So let's see if that happens. So not an inventory item. We see it says item 1 object picked up. And then we try to pick up the second one, and it says it's already in there. But it tells us it is an object that we can pick up, but it's already in our inventory. So this is the end of this video. Again, I apologize for the confusion. It confused me a big amount. It took me like 20 minutes to figure out what exactly was going on, and honestly, that's my fault. So if that does get confusing, just try watching this video again one more time. It should go over everything, and you should get this end result like I did. If not, comment, let me know what's going on. I try to get back to you guys as best as I can. I am pretty busy, but I do want to help. But if you did find this tutorial series so far interesting and easy to follow, and you're enjoying the content, then let me know as well. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't, share it, all that stuff just to help me out. and we're going to continue the series. I'm going to continue it to completion so that every one of you can have this working inventory item system like I have. And as I continue to work on my point-and-click game, I'm going to keep putting up tutorials to let you know how I made it, just so you guys can learn as well. So this, again, like I said, this is the end of the video. I just want to thank you guys for watching. Bye! Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then either click on me or click on the subscribe button above to subscribe to the Devin Level Design YouTube channel for more tutorials, more demonstrations, more everything related to game development and my work in the game industry as it goes so far. Also available in my other channel that I just made, Devin's Cherries. That's where all the silly things are going. That's where all the Let's Plays are. That's where my vlogs are going to be going. That's where all the ridiculous things are going to be going. So definitely subscribe to that. So there's going to be a video for Far Cry here on the left. Click on that, or click on the Devin's Cherries logos on the top. Just check it out. Let me know what you think. Subscribe if you like the content. There's going to be way more coming in. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!